Right, you're right, Mr. Williams.
Yeah,
To
good.
carry on.
Certainly.
Thank you very much. Yes, Mr. Billett.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Williams, thank you for coming back to us. Can I return to where we were just before the lunch break, which was looking at the picture on the wall, 5774.
Yeah.
Now, you were telling us about the words BA and what you put up there, and the tick. Can I move on then, just through the symbology of this wall? F. What does F mean?
Initially, that was to denote floor, but to be honest, the amount of information I needed to communicate, I decided to not include F anymore.
Right.
I listed it for the first three, but
Okay.
it was.
Now,
It doesn't look, it's in the sequence in which you're reading it, I appreciate that doesn't sit in line, but if you imagine that was my first few that I was writing down.
but it's interesting, actually, because you get an F, there are 4 Fs. And then, this helps me with the question I'm going to come to later, the F is next to 111 at the bottom. The last F is 111, it looks like. But there isn't one next to 112, which might suggest that 112 is an insert later.
It was. 112 was squeezed in between.
Yes. Okay.
And from recollection, the first few numbers were from, I think that first lot of numbers there might have been from the forward information board. Remember we spoke about the forward information board not having many numbers? I think that might have come from the forward information board, and then I think Charlie Battersby's arrival may have been the cross-checking, the picture that you presented, where I'm writing on the wall and he's doing something, he's pointing. But it's pretty cloudy.
Yes, of course it is. And we're going to look at some of this detail in a moment.
Okay.
But I'm interested in that set of Fs running out, because it ties in with something I'm going to ask you about. But then looking across on the right, looking at flat 205, you've got U/K. What does that mean?
Unknown.
Right. And does that mean the number of persons was unknown?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you explain why some, I think 2 in this initial list, have got lines through them? 133 and 19. What does that signify?
I may not have put the lines through that.
Right.
And is that the picture of the whole wall?
Well, that's the best picture we've got of the whole wall.
Okay. So if you I do recall putting a line through one that I thought was a duplicate. No, it's feasible that I didn't put a line through those.
Right. Okay. And then you've got some information on the right-hand side. You've got, against 115, 1 times A, 1 times K. What's that?
One adult, and that was meant to, one kid.
Yeah. Okay. And then you've got further information a little bit lower down. If I can just ask you to look at 122. I think you'll have to scroll. Yes. So 122 near the bottom of this list, 15th. You've got smoke log.
Yeah, smoke logging.
Where would that information have come from, do you think?
I would assume that was attached to the control information form.
Okay. Right, okay. Well, we'll come back to that particular flat later. Now, the list on the left, if we can just look at that, do you remember when that was started?
Oh, no.
Okay. Looking at the symbols on that, there are some BAs, and then they've got a crossing out.
Yeah.
Do you know first of all, what the BAs represent?
It may have initially indicated that BA had been committed to that area, and then on further information, been told that BA had not been committed, so we crossed out BA.
Okay. And that's different from the tick next to the BA.
Absolutely.
Okay. Do you remember ever getting fresh information about a particular flat which caused you to update this list?
You're going to have to help me. There's a lot of flats there.
Okay. I mean, it's a general question. Do you remember getting, just in general terms, fresh information about a particular flat which led you to update the list?
There's no specific flat where I received updated information. I think you'll see I made another note on the right-hand side. So additional information that I was informed on was that somebody on the 11th floor, there was a person hanging from the floor, the external floor.
Doesn't say. Is that your writing?
Yep.
Right. Okay.
And with that information, sorry, can you zoom out of that, please? Yeah, so with that information, that required follow-up information. So I might have got a slip that said that there was somebody on the 11th floor, which required me communicating to the Bridgehead and saying, do we know if there's somebody? Are you with me?
And how would you go about communicating with the Bridgehead?
I would just shout up to Paul Watson and say, this is something that's been brought to my attention. Hey, do we know about this? Are we aware of this? Is this because it didn't come in the form of an FSG. It might have come in just as I can't be specific on each individual note, but it might have come in that a firefighter came in and told me something. So it's just somewhere where I could make a note and then communicate that and keep looking at the FSG to see if it was coming in there. I was having to decipher a lot of information and then forward that information to prioritise rescue.
Do you remember at what time or at what stage in the night you wrote the information in that large box about the 7th, 9th and 11th floors?
I don't.
Do you think it was? Sorry.
I'm sure the CCTV would assist in identifying times. But
do you know whether you wrote the box over the list, which we talked about earlier, or whether you wrote the list over the box?
Where it says 15, 16, 17?
Yes.
That was written over the box.
That was written over the box.
Yeah, those notes were taken. So you can see above where it says flames at window 0215.
Yes.
People on roof 0216.
Yes.
It was things that were coming in that had not been. It was information that was coming through the foyer that may not have been 100% accurate. So it was a point in which I could reference the information and raise it via the Bridgehead.
Right. Well, let's see if we can pursue that a bit further. But just before I leave that, you think that the list on the right came after the information in the box?
Correct.
Right. Now, I want to do a little.
Sorry, just to be clear, the list on the right that's got the 94 attached to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, correct.
Yes. Yes. I want to do a little exercise, if I can, just to see how far we get with some information. Now, can I ask you first of all, please, to be shown LFB quadruple 1922, page 33. Now, I'll just tell you what has been said about this. Just to tell you what these are, this is part or one of a batch of slips, as you call them, which were found I think in CU7, that's what we've been told, at the end of the incident. I'm not sure that helps you terribly much. Paul Sadler came to give evidence last week, and he said that this was a white slip, and it is a white top copy, or top version, which he wrote on as the first of a batch that he did while he was working on the bonnet of a car under the covered area outside the tower. And he wrote on it, as you can see, 205, 12th floor. And it says flames through window, and someone's written over that, 0213. And he told us that he got this by way of radio message from CU7, and he completes this as his first control information form. That's where he's got number 1 at the top. And that is how he did it. He then said he sent it to the Bridgehead by a runner. Now, my first question is, do you think you saw this?
Is this the control information form you showed me this morning?
No. Sorry, yes, it is. Yes.
Can I confirm that it is? Is this the control information form you showed me this morning?
Yeah. Yes, it is. Yes.
Well, then, as I said this morning, that I think that it's possible that this may have crossed paths.
Yes.
The fact, as I said this morning, 205 looked familiar.
Yeah.
And I guess the reason it looks familiar is because it's at the top of my initial fire survival guidance list on the wall, which would then correlate with the information that was on the forward information board. And I suspect that what happened there was the information I took from the forward information board may have been before my first runner returned.
Yeah.
And then when crew manager Batterby returned with the piece of paper, the envelope as such, that ties in with the photograph that you showed me, where I'm writing on the wall and he looks like he's doing something next to me. Right. It would tie in that it's feasible he might have been cross-checking the numbers.
Yes, I'm so sorry. I thought you meant the envelope, but yes, this is the one I showed you this morning. But can I just then get back to... I just note the fact that it says 12 floor on it, yes? Note that. And then go back, if you would please, to the picture of the wall, to 5774. Can you see that next to 205, you've put something with a TH next to it, and then it looks as if it's been overwritten with 23. Can you tell us what's underneath the 23?
It looks like it's a 14th.
You think that's a 14th view? Can you confirm that that was an overwriting?
It looks like it was.
Does that explain why you left the TH there and didn't put RD?
I can't confirm that I did that.
Do you know who else might have done that?
It was a long night and there was a lot of numbers going through. I can't confirm that I did that.
Okay. Is it possible that when you first wrote the floor number for flat 205 on the wall, you took it from the white CIF on the right of the screen there and wrote 12th?
No, I think it's possible that I took it from a forward information board.
Right, okay. Now, if you look to the right, you go back to the wall picture and look to the right of where you've got flat 205, no, sorry, flat 205, you could probably do it from, I'm trying to capture the whole of the line, 205, 23rd, UK, and then to the right of that, Mr. Documents Director, if we can just expand the whole thing, keep going across to the right, keep going, stop. Right. Now, you can see that to the right of where you've put UK, it says FR. Well, can you read that for us?
It says FR at door 243. Flames at window 215. People on roof 216.
Are you sure that it's 243? Perhaps we can just have that magnified.
Oh, 213.
Right.
Yeah.
213.
Yeah.
Now, where did you get the information that there was fire at door?
I would suggest I got the information from the forward information board.
Would that have got the... Right, you think the forward information board. And would the forward information board have enough space on it to have details like fire at door? If we go back to the white slip, well, Let me just show you the yellow slip. It's page 34. If you look at 1922, page 34, this is the yellow copy of the white slip that Mr. Sadler sent back to CU7. That's what he told us. But do you know who wrote fire to door on the yellow slip, crossing through the words flames through window?
No, but I mean, it looks like the same handwriting to the person who's written Golf 34, Louisa de Silva, watch manager Paul Sadler,
Yes.
and fire to door.
Yes. Do you remember seeing that document at all?
No.
Is it possible that you got the information that there was a fire at the door relating to flat 205 from this document, this yellow document, which was sent from CU7 to you by Runner?
No, I think, as I said, this is part of the triplicate copy of the control information form you showed me of the white slip. I'd suggest that the information that I logged on the wall came from the forward information board. I don't recall seeing this piece of paper.
If you then look at the white piece of paper again, 33, someone has deleted flames through window and put fire at the door.
I can see that.
Do you know who wrote that?
No.
Do you recall when, roughly, you overwrote the floor number with the 23 that we see next to 205?
I can't confirm that I overwrote that number.
Right. Now, can I ask you to look at page 35 and 36? These are the blue and yellow copies of a slip for flat 205, this time showing floor 23.
Yeah.
Do you think, or is it possible that this was the means by which the person working with you at the wall, if it wasn't you, received the correct floor number for flat 205?
I think it's feasible that if that is the slip that I received from my runner, then it may have encouraged me to review which floor 205 is on. Now,
these two slips, the yellow at 35 and the blue at 36, don't have what I call a Sadler number on them, a number at the top with a ring round it.
No.
Do you recall whether slips that you got while writing on the wall came from the command unit direct or somewhere else?
Now, the slips I was receiving, I was of the full my understanding was that they were coming from the command unit that was delegated to deal with the fire survival guidance.
Going back to 33, did you ever do you recall ever seeing white slips with numbers on the very top of them, such as we see here, number 1 in a ring?
I think that is. I don't recall seeing that. I don't. And to be entirely honest, the fact that it says Paul Sadler FSG outside wouldn't make me think anything other than that he may have been nominated to be the person to collate information on the command unit outside. It doesn't mean anything in terms of, there's nothing within my training on fire survival guidance or the way that I work at an incident that would suggest that seeing that denotes anything out of the ordinary.
Right. Putting all this together, and without suggesting anything to you, let me see if I can put a possible scenario to you that you wrote 205 12th floor because you saw the white slip at 33, and then you later corrected it because you saw the yellow or blue slips at 35 and 36.
I think that if the CCTV footage were to be reviewed, I would suggest that I have got the information from the forward information board.
Right.
I have transferred the information from the forward information board onto the wall, and it may have been corrected later on in the incident.
Right.
I don't recall seeing that slip.
Right. Could you just give me 1 second? Can I then ask you to do a similar exercise with another flat? And this is flat 74. Now, if you go to the white wall on the left-hand side, just expand that. We can get rid of LFB 1922-33. Looking at 74, which is the third one down, that says to the right of it, well, help me, the words people on roof, 216. How does that relate? How do those words relate, if they do, to flat 74 on the 10th floor?
I'm not of the opinion that they do relate to that.
Right. Do you know where you got that detail from, people on roof at 216?
Yeah, as I said, it was information that was coming in by the third party. It wasn't. It wasn't. If it was a fire survival guidance, I would have put it down as fire survival guidance. It was coming in as a third party, that maybe a message from a firefighter or a message from just verbal points of reference by people coming into the building. There was a lot going on. I mean, I think that we're focusing quite heavily here on something, but the information relay going on at that moment in time was tremendous. We had observations being made of what's going on outside. People were coming in and talking about what they had seen in terms of the extent of the fire spreading around the building, of which I couldn't see because I was in the building, and I didn't move from this spot from the moment I was tasked with the job to the moment in which I left the incident. I did not commit myself to any other task.
No.
I solely provided fire survival guidance information.
And I just want to focus on them. They may look like minutiae, but I just want to see how far we get.
Okay.
Can I just ask you to be shown LFB *01968? And I want you to look at page 47, first of all. Now, and this is in a different batch of forms, but this has a 3 at the top in the ring, which, on the basis of Paul Sadler's evidence last week, would indicate that it was the third one he did from outside the building. And it says, flat 74, 10 floor, people on roof, time mark 216. And just for completeness, can I just show you the next page, page 48, which is the copy, the yellow copy, which he says he would have sent back to the command unit. He sent the white one to the Bridgehead. That was his evidence.
Did Paul Sadler expand on what Louisa de Silva means?
I'm answering questions again now, but I don't know. Is the answer? It's probably the safest thing for me to say.
Because if it says Louisa de Silva and she was the watch manager at the Bridgehead.
Yes, that's right. And I don't think I put this document to him, so it wouldn't be fair to me to speculate on answers to questions I can't remember whether I put or not. But what I can ask you about is the white copy. Let's work with the white copy. And 47. It carries a time mark of 216, and it says people on roof. The yellow copy I just showed you says the same. If you want to go back to it, we can look at it. Does that help you, going back to the wall, identify the source of the information about the people on the roof, which we see against flat 70 floor, 10th floor, 216?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, it's not from what I recall, but it would make sense. Certainly, you can't argue with what I'm being shown.
No, and if Paul Sadler's evidence is correct, that the general way he was working was that he would number his FSG white slips with a number at the top and sent them to the Bridgehead. Does that mean that you would have got this document and inscribed that information on the wall at that time in relation to this flat?
No, it means that I think that that has gone to the Bridgehead, where Louisa De Silva has transcribed that information onto the forward information board.
Right.
And I have taken that information and transferred it onto my wall.
Right. At what sort of time do you think? Well, let me ask it a different way. Do you think you wrote people on roof at 216 after you'd completed that long list in the middle, or while you were doing it?
I would imagine, I would think by the way that I work, I probably wrote it as I was scribing across.
Okay. Right. Now, the slight difficulty we have at the moment is that we have looked at the CCTV, looking for an FIB at the ground floor, and the earliest we can see the FIB coming down to the ground floor was after the Bridgehead had moved down, and the earliest picture we have it is at 3:12, where it is lying on the wall next to you. We can look at the picture if we need to.
Again, my question would be whether Charlie Battersby was asked if he collated the information
Right.
maybe in his handbook or
Right.
on that slip.
Yeah.
But we don't have a picture of the forward. Have you got a picture of the forward information board?
We have a picture of the forward information board, but only after 3:12. Nothing before that time.
I believe the information would still be on the information board.
Right. Okay. Let me see if I can do one more. Can you please be shown LFB 1922, page 1? Now this is a yellow slip, flat 161, 19th floor, 10 people, and it's got a Sadler 11 at the top, which indicates on the basis of his evidence that he wrote that.
Okay.
Do you recognise?
I do recall writing 10 people.
You do. You recall writing 10 people.
I think if we look at the wall, I do recall writing down
Yes.
in the list because I was quite shocked by that there'd be 10 people in a flat.
Okay. So let's look at the wall and see if we can just pin that down. If you go back to the wall, and if you could enlarge that, please.
Is it at the bottom? I think it's at the bottom.
Yes. Well, flat 161 is in the middle list, halfway down,
Yeah.
but it doesn't have
10 people.
10 people.
Yeah.
Now then, first of all, do you know why that would be?
I don't.
Okay, but it does appear, if we can just enlarge the picture and go to the right-hand list. If you look 3 entries up from the bottom, it says 19, 161, 10. So that's where that appears on the wall. It's the only place it does appear on the wall. Can you help with that? Do you know where you got that information from, given where it is on the wall, and given that it appears on this yellow slip?
That would suggest I received that information
Right.
a bit later on in the evening.
Okay, so that would suggest that you did get at least some of Paul Sadler's slips coming into the building, and then inscribe the detail on the wall.
It would suggest that.
Okay.
Is
Now-
that the only? I mean, only based. What's very difficult for me here is that I'm getting snippets of information that was being presented, but obviously there was a lot
Yeah.
of information and there were duplicates.
Yeah.
So it's feasible that I might have written up 161 as a duplicate. I wasn't aware that Paul Sadler was collating information outside. I believed that the fire survival guidance was coming directly from a command unit who were receiving the calls from the people that required rescuing. So I don't recall seeing the first slip. This slip, honestly, looking at the little number 11 at the top, that wouldn't scream out to anything to me.
Right.
So
Okay.
it's feasible I could have got that slip and written it down.
Do you remember getting slips with numbers at the top in a circle?
I mean, in the most respectful way, you can see how many slips I dealt with that night. So you'll understand that my recollection of individual slips is going to be impossible.
No, I appreciate that. I'm asking you a generic.
No,
general
I don't
question.
recall it. I don't recall
You
it.
don't. Can I then show you the document I did put to you this morning, which was the Sadler envelope, which is MET 000016967. Now, we looked at this before, and I think I asked you already, do you remember writing any of the contents of this list on the wall? And I said we'd come back to it. Now, let's see if we can just push that a little bit further. I'm sorry to ask you about
No, it's okay.
itty-bitty details, but
No.
it's what I do. It doesn't contain... perhaps we should compare it with the wall, actually. Paul, can we have that up? Now, you will see, although not at a glance, that the wall has got 74 on it, flat 74, but this list does not.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have 95 either, which is on the wall, but not on the list.
Yeah.
Or 122,
Yeah.
which is on the wall but not on the list. Now, so we can discount those, but can I just ask you to look at the numbers from 111 on your wall to 115, 133, 19, 182 and 161.
Yeah.
Those all appear to run in, as it were, envelope order. Can you
Yeah.
see? Because then on the
Yeah,
envelope,
I can, yeah.
it's the same sequence of flats.
Absolutely.
Do you recall transcribing or transposing at least some of the numbers from a written or pre-written list to the wall?
I recall having the information from the forward information board that was at the Bridgehead in my attendance.
Right.
And I recall asking for that information so I could put it on the wall because I wanted to ensure that we did not have a duplicate and to ensure that we didn't have a miscommunication as to where we were going to allocate our resources to carry out FSG. The fact that this piece of evidence on the right has got De Silvo written on it would suggest to me that De Silvo is the person who received this information. And if as referred to this morning, was that it was being done by the means of handheld communication, then that would suggest to me that De Silvo is the person that received this information and relayed it up onto the forward information board. If my memory is clouded and the forward information board didn't arrive at the ground floor until 3 o'clock, then I would suggest that the information from the forward information board would have been collated prior to that and relayed onto the wall. I don't recall seeing this piece of paper.
No. Now, the difficulty, of course, we've got is that Watch Manager De Silvo has no recollection of seeing the envelope or the list, as you call it. So I'm having to ask you about it, and you'll appreciate that. But the sequence there is, as we can see, the same, which is why I was asking you what you remember.
Did you mention that you had a picture of the forward information board at 3 o'clock?
I have a picture of the forward information. We don't. No, right. I'm afraid we're still looking at it, but it hasn't been disclosed yet, so I can't show it to you. But what I was giving you an assurance of is that on our review of the CCTV footage, down to at 3 o'clock, there's no footage we've seen of the forward information board in the lobby, on the wall, or next to the wall where you were standing.
Then my memory must be clouded. But the information that came from that forward information board was collated, and it did come downstairs to me.
In general terms, let me ask you, when you did the list, well, we'll come to the list on the left. Let me take the question in order. Just going back to the Sadler envelope, I think we've probably done what we can with it to that extent. do you look at 161 on the envelope? It goes to 14. 161 to 14. It's got no flat 164 on it at all. When you go to your list on the wall, it has 161 and then 164 and then 14. And next to 164, you've put 19th, one person. Are you able to explain that sequence?
What? Because it doesn't line up with this piece of paper?
Well, partly that, and also, well, I don't want to lead you on this, and I'd like to just get your recollection, but it looks from the list. Well, you tell me, do you recall how the list from 161, 164 and 14 came to be collated?
Having received control information forms from the command unit via my runner, collating fire survival guidance information.
Well, let me just lead you a little bit on this and resist any attempt to be misled by me, please. It looks from the list on the wall that 161 was followed by 14, and then you overwrote or inserted 164 afterwards. Just looking at the way the writing works, might that be right?
It's possible.
As to the 164, can I now then ask you to look at LFB 1922 at page 2. That says 164.19, one person, and it has no Sadler number at the top. Does that help you with your recollection as to the source of the information about 164?
Yeah, because yes, it does help me. Because it's another control information slip,
right?
Not dissimilar to the hundreds that I dealt with that night.
Right. Okay. And so that would have come directly from the command unit, so far as you know.
Yes.
Right. Turning back to the Sadler envelope, if I can. I'm just comparing the two again, which is the best slide. You've got 195 as the third entry down on the what I call the envelope, the list, 22nd floor, but there's no entry for 195 on the wall. Do you know why that might be?
It might be because I didn't collate the information from this piece of paper.
Right. Looking at flat 204, which says 23rd floor, which is correct, if you look at the wall information, it's 204 appears at the bottom of your middle list with 21 next to it.
Yeah.
Do you know why?
Yeah,
can you explain that?
Yeah, there was great confusion from the BA crew that went up there. They had no. They had no. I can't remember which floor. It was about from the 12th upwards, from recollection. It might have been more, but they were completely disorientated. There were reports back that the floor numbers had been written in crayon on the wall.
Right.
I would suspect China graph.
Right.
There was great disorientation amongst the BA crews coming out. They were exhausted. They struggled to articulate what they'd done.
Right.
They were showing the signs of heat stress, and often the people that had been brought out by the BA crews weren't necessarily were they didn't bring them out individually. They were manhandled down the stairs. They were rallied down the stairs. So the casualty would be rescued very quickly, long before the BA crew actually made it out of the stairwell. So to correlate where people were coming from and to understand where the BA crews had been, as I said before the break, became, in a very short space of time, very difficult to understand. So the correction of the 21st would have been based on information I was told by the BA crew. And also, just as point of reference, the question you asked me about having a floor plan, it would have been very helpful to have had a floor plan at this stage, because then I would have known how many floors there were, but I didn't know how many floors were in the tower.
Yes, absolutely. Understand. Did the crews returning actually say anything to you about difficulties in numbering floors as they went up the tower because of problems with the numbering on the floors of the floors in the stairwell?
They articulated in language I prefer not to use how confusing it was in there and disorientating.
Okay, right. That was a. Do any specific instances come to mind?
It was a fairly regular point of reference.
Okay. Can I ask you then to look at the left-hand list? Let's move on to that. On the white wall, we can get rid of the envelope and look at the white wall. Now, did you start at the top? Did you start that left-hand list at the top?
I did, yeah.
Okay. What made you start a new list?
The sheer volume of FSG.
Do you know the timing when you started that new list?
No idea.
Had anything changed in terms of environment or position of the bridgehead or anything like that?
I can't remember if I think when I was interviewed, I submitted a timeline as point of reference. I don't recall if that list coincides with the bringing down of the bridgehead. There were several points that took place through the night that were significant.
Okay.
The list I started writing, what I do know is that it was around the same time that Pete Wolfenden joined me. I think I'd got down to about, I don't know, maybe 203. And in actual fact, I think the handwriting changes. You see where it says 173 22p 2p?
Yes.
That's not my handwriting.
Right. Okay. Okay. Well, let's see how far we go. Can I ask you just to look at the first two entries, which is 123 and 133, and next to them in the right-hand column, you've got, I think that says line. Is this right? Line dead. Line dead.
Yeah.
Is that your handwriting?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I now ask you then to look, please, at LFB quadruple 01968, page 44 and 45. Let's keep the white wall up on the left hand of the screen and put. That's it. Well, that's not it. Never mind. Now these are control information forms. They don't have a Sadler number on them. Flat 123 and 113 with the floor numbers, and they say line gone dead. Time updated 3:21, and then call from CU. You can see on the white. Now, just looking at those, does this help you remember where you got the information that you wrote on the wall at the start of that list from?
I would have got it from that slip.
Right, okay. So does the timing, 3:21, help us identify the time at which you started that left-hand list?
I think that it's fairly accurate. It wouldn't be exact because obviously there's a time delay in which we received the FSG, but yes. I think it's a fairly accurate time.
Thank you. That's helpful. And from other people's evidence, well, let me try this. Do you remember where the bridgehead was at this time? In 3:21 or so, or a few minutes after 3:21?
Initially, I thought the bridgehead had been brought down to ground floor at 3:45, but actually, it might have been before that. It's feasible that it could have been on the ground floor by that time.
Yes, I was going to ask you about that. This is page 13 of your statement,
Yeah.
where you say at approximately 3:45 a.m. the bridgehead was moved down to the ground floor. We've heard evidence from a number of witnesses so far that say that the bridgehead was moved down after, or just shortly after 3:08,
Yeah.
and that's been linked to some photographic evidence.
Yeah.
Would you disagree with
To
that?
be honest, as we've been going through the evidence this morning, it has occurred to me that what I've written in my statement occurred in a much shorter space of time, so it is highly possible
Right.
that 3:08 is when it came down.
Okay. So if I was to ask you, did this second list, the left-hand list, start after the move of the bridgehead to the ground floor?
I think it's feasible to say it did.
Okay. Now, looking at 123, flat 123, it gets a bit. Well, help me with the line on the left, which seems to link. It looks like a bracket between 113 and 123. Do you see under the words BA cross, letters BA cross through, you've got like a big L?
Yeah.
What is that?
That is that BA had been committed to 123 on the 15th.
I see. Not 113.
No.
Okay. So that's an arrow, is it? Essentially.
Yeah.
Right. I see. And then it gets a line through it. So can you just explain to me again? You did explain this morning that it means the BA wasn't actually committed.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
So when you wrote, okay, how long after writing 123 15 line dead do you think, and I know it's a guess or an estimate perhaps at this distance of time, did you write BA with a line through it?
I don't know. I think you can probably timestamp it because there will be CCTV footage of me standing with Group Manager Welch looking at the wall, and that will tie in with the information we received to say that we weren't committing crews
Right. Well, let's see if we can.
above a certain floor, so it'll kind of just tie in together there.
Okay, well, this is an attempt at something. Let's see if this works. Bear with me. Could you please be shown INQ 253? Now, this is. We can see you, I think,
Yep.
pointing at the wall. Sorry to lead you on this, but I think it's probably obvious by now.
Yeah,
Talking
yeah.
to two white helmets.
Yeah,
And this time mark is an adjusted time mark of 3:16:29.
yeah,
Do you know who they were?
yeah.
Who?
So I'm the person without the helmet. To the left of me is Paul Watson. To the right looks like I would think it was Station Manager Wolfendine.
Right.
The crew manager's Damien McGee.
Okay. Right.
And that in my statement I state that the bridgehead was brought down to the ground floor, and I advised the crews to set up the entry control boards opposite me
Yes.
so that we could correlate the information. And on the left hand corner you can see the entry control boards, and you can also see the BA,
You can.
the firefighters wearing BA.
Yes, you can.
So
We're going
it'd
to come
be
back
around
to this
that
shortly, but I just wanted to get the time mark for that. Can I just go back to the wall then and ask you about the BA with the cross through it? Just breaking it down even further. 1, 2, 3. You have an arrow to BA. Was the sequence of events that you wrote BA and then later crossed it through? Or would you have written BA and then crossed it through straight away?
No. It would have been. I would have been under the assumption. I would have been going through my process that I'd established with Paul Watson. That I transfer the information to him. He passes it on, and then I said I must have received information to say we didn't commit BA to that floor or flat,
Right.
and then I kept put a cross through it.
Okay, right. I see. So it's the same assumption as before, BA, because you see the deployment, or you see Paul Watson disappearing with the piece of paper.
Exactly.
And then you get information back that there was no deployment.
Yeah. But
Now-
we had a clear line of communication. So if BA was not committed, he informed me.
Right, okay. Now, there are no ticks on this list.
No.
Why is that?
Because we were struggling to progress.
Right. Can I then go back to the crossing out of BA?
Oh, sorry, before we leave that, what's the relevance of the right-hand column?
Sorry, sir?
Well, while we've got this on the screen, there are 4 columns here, aren't there?
Those are the middle list.
What's
The BA columns.
Well, the BA appears in a number of places in that right-hand column, as do ticks. I'm just wondering.
That's the middle list, Mr. Chairman. I think we had evidence this
Oh, that's
morning.
the other side of the middle list.
That's the far
Right.
left-hand side of the middle list.
Right, well, my error then.
And I was just asking about why
No,
there were no
no, it's all right.
similar. Can I just then ask you about the crossing out of BA? What information led you to cross that out? Take 1, 2, 3 as an example.
We haven't. It would be articulated verbally. We haven't committed the crew to floor. We're not committing above such and such floor.
Okay. Let's just break this down then. Do you remember being told by anybody that the Bridgehead was not committing above the 15th floor at any time?
I'd have to refer to my statement. I can't remember
I don't think it's in
exactly
there.
which floor it was, but yes, we were informed that we wouldn't be committing above a certain floor.
Right. Okay. We'll come back to the above 10, below 10 shortly. When you got the information that you weren't deploying a BA crew to flat 1, 2, 3 as you had thought you were going to, did you communicate that fact to the command unit?
I had Station Manager Wolfenden. If by which time, I believe Station Manager Wolfenden would have been with me by the time, as we've seen from the picture. So my earlier recollection that he joined me halfway down the list is clearly that he was there when we came to the ground floor, because we've seen him.
I see.
When I was informed that we weren't committing above a certain floor, I actually heard it through him, and he was in communication with the command unit.
Right. Did you hear him say to the command unit words to the effect of,
No.
we're not sending a BA to 1, 2, 3?
No, it was very noisy in there.
Okay. Now, halfway down that left-hand list, we've got flat 203, 5A, 2C. Is that still your writing, or have we switched to Pete Wolfenden's writing?
I think that might have been Pete Wolfenden's.
Right. Can you just help us where your writing stops, going down the list, and his starts?
Well, it looks like it doesn't look like, I can tell you, we were
Yes.
taking turns to write things up on that side. So he would write something up, I would also be writing something up, and communicating between ourselves.
Right.
He initially, it looks like, I mean, because I was still, he continued to write up while I tried to ascertain or gather information from people coming out
Okay.
about where they'd come from. And I think that while I was trying to gather information from both BA crews, firefighters and survivors, he continued taking in vice versa. But I'm sure he'll clarify that for you.
Well, just help us with this. Can you tell us which numbers are your handwriting and which are his, do you think? I think you said 113 and 123 are yours.
Yeah, they're definitely mine. It looks like 201, 183, and that doesn't look similar to my writing. I don't know. It's quite difficult to tell, isn't it?
Well, you're, I think, in the best position to tell us.
I am, but I mean,
Right.
it's a really specific point in the evening that you're asking me to tell you about.
All right.
It's a bit. I can assure you that I wrote. Let's a guess 122 on the 15th.
Well, don't guess. I mean, if you either you've got a recollection or as good a recollection as you have, but maybe I'm being unfair asking you the question if you don't.
I
remember.
mean, we're focusing on. There are a lot of things going on.
Forgive me if you would, if I just pursue this a little bit more to see if it helps. If you could please be shown LFB 122, page 30.
Yep.
This is a white slip, flat 203, floor 23, which says 5 adults and 2 kids, and this is time marked at 3:19.
Yeah.
From CU list.
Yep.
Is this, and I won't ask you whether you recognise it specifically, but do you remember seeing a document like this?
Yeah, I received many documents like this during the night.
Can you help me? What does from CU list mean? Do you know?
I would assume. Well, I don't know. No, I looking at it, I think it would be a reinforcement that is coming from the list that the CU has collated via the FSG procedure.
Right. Okay. Does it? This flat 203, if I can just go back to the wall again, please, Paul, is only in the left-hand list. We only have flat 203 in the left-handmost list.
Yeah.
And looking at that and looking at the time mark at page 30, which we've got on the other side of the page, what does that tell us about when you or Pete Wolfenden got the FSG information about flat 203?
Sorry, you're asking me to clarify when we wrote up 203?
Yeah, and then basically what I'm asking you, rather a roundabout way, is does the document at page 30 on the right tell us what the timing of when you wrote 203, you or Pete Wolfenden wrote 203.23 on the wall?
No, it tells you an approximate time that was taken by the command unit, and I would suggest that the time it takes to come from the command unit to the entrance of the foyer would be in an approximate time that we wrote up 203.
Okay.
Floor 23.
Right. Can I just ask you then? I'm sorry to jump around, but to go back to the wall middle list.
Yep.
204 at the bottom. 204 at the bottom. Where you've got 21. We looked at that earlier. Can I ask you at the same time to be shown LFB 1922, page 31? Now, here we've got 204, 21 floor.
Mm-hmm.
And then someone has written on the control information form, don't know if people in this info came from Watch Manager De Silva. Can you help us with that? Do you know who would have written that?
No.
Do you remember seeing...
sorry. I don't know if people in this information... I mean, did you ask Watch Manager De Silva this?
Did I ask her? You just help me. Is that your handwriting?
No.
Right. Do you remember seeing any white slip which said, "Don't know if people in this
I-
info came from Watch Manager De Silva"?
I can't recall seeing this, but what I would say is that it might be that the command unit received information via Watch Manager De Silva.
Right.
So,
Okay.
she would be better suited to answer that.
Right. Now, when you got these pieces of paper, by which I mean the slips, what did you do with them? We've been through the wall exercise, with one or two more to look at shortly, but what did you do with the pieces of paper?
I kept them
Where did you keep them?
in my pocket.
On your uniform?
That's not 100% accurate. I held them so that I could flick through them, and then when the bunch got too much, I had to put them, and I think I might have put them in my pocket so they didn't get wet. I was holding them for most of the night.
Right. An ever thicker sheath, really.
So I could flick through them.
Yeah.
Because obviously, and there were duplicates. I got duplicates throughout the night. I can't tell you specifically which numbers, but I had people come to me with notebooks with numbers on, which required cross-checking. It was not. It was very, very busy.
Did you send any of these slips to the Bridgehead, do you think?
No, because my purpose there was to coordinate the FSG from that point and communicate that to the Bridgehead, because the Bridgehead had moved. By the time it got to the ground floor, I think it had moved one more time before that up.
Yes, it has,
So-
on the third floor.
The purpose of me being at that single location, as I understood it, was so that I could manage all of the FSG coming in.
Can I ask you to be shown LFB quadruple 01951 and indeed 1961, actually? We can have both up at the same time. I'll tell you what these are when we get the next page up. It's self-evident these are white control forms for those flats. Watch Manager O'Keefe said that he found these he had these in his tunic at the Bridgehead at the end of the night. So he definitely got these. I don't know whether he got others, it's another question. Do you know, can you explain how he got these?
Yes.
How?
Because around 4 o'clock, I noticed the runner go directly to the Bridgehead, which had by this time had been located at the bottom of the stairs behind the glass wall. And I went and I challenged why they were receiving fire survival guidance rather than it coming to me.
Right. Okay. We'll come to that because that's a bit in your statement you deal with, and I want to ask you about that. But that,
Okay.
so essentially, you think it missed you out and went to the Bridgehead direct.
I do, yeah.
Okay. Can I then ask you just about a couple of other documents? Can I ask you to be shown LFB quadruple 01929? Mr. Chairman, I'm getting indications from elsewhere in the room that the witness might need a break.
Well, I was going to suggest we have a break very soon. I was waiting until you got to a natural point.
Well, I'm about to arrive at a natural point, but for the indications in the room.
Yeah,
Can
I'm
I ask
okay.
the witness, can you go on for another 5
Yeah, yeah,
minutes?
yeah.
Right. These are also documents which Watch Manager O'Keefe told us that he had found in his tunic, or his suit at least, at the end of the night.
Yeah.
And you mentioned a minute ago little slips,
Yeah.
little notepads. Are these, not being specific about it, but are these the sorts of notepad slips that you saw?
So these are timed at 4:10, 4:05, 4:10, 4:20. By that time in the night, we had what's the best way to describe it? We had a new approach to how we were going to transfer some information.
Right.
And we did this, so Pete Wolfenden took the lead on it, and we realised that we'd witnessed the information go directly to the Bridgehead, and actually when I approached the Bridgehead, I could clearly see that they had been taking fire survival guidance themselves within that area. Hence the reason I challenged it. These slips relate to the way in which the process that we went through once we revamped the way that we were going to approach it, and that was that we went in a sequence starting from the ground and we worked our way up, and by which time Pete Wolfenden had a good line of communication with the command unit. I scribed onto the wall, and these were noted down by Paul Watson and handed through. So these would relate to, I think they were handed by Paul Watson, I'm not 100% on that, no. But this information, this is the sequence in which we went through it, because you can see all the numbers are, like, they're in numerical order.
Do you remember seeing or receiving these little slips into your hands while you were inscribing at the wall?
No, these weren't in my direction. These were going to the Bridgehead,
right,
to Brian O'Keefe.
Right. Directly from where?
I believe via Paul Watson,
right,
or Pete Wolfenden.
Okay.
Not by me.
Well, no.
We were collating information to. At some point in the night, a group manager came in who was coordinating fire survival guidance externally.
Right.
I think his name might have been Tom Goodall, but I don't know.
Tom
Goodall?
Goodall, right.
I don't know. Not 100%. Whatever the conversation took place between Pete Wolfenden and him resulted in a clear line of communication for the FSG, for the command unit.
Does the name Station Manager Egan mean anything to you? Daniel Egan?
No.
Right. Okay. Do you remember roughly what time this new system started?
Yeah, it was around 4 o'clock.
Around 4 o'clock?
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe a bit before, but certainly not that much after. I mean, the first one's timed at 4:05.
And from that time, do you remember whether there was direct radio contact between you or Pete Wolfenden and the command unit?
I believe that Pete Wolfenden had contact with the command unit.
Right. Okay.
And I don't know if that was via an airwave radio or via the handheld radio. I'm unsure how he was communicating via radio.
Do you think that might be a good
I think
point?
that's a convenient move.
Yeah. We're going to have a break now, Mr. Williams. Until 3:25, so got 10 minutes. Fresh yourself. Don't talk to anyone about your evidence, if you wouldn't mind. There you go. Thank you. 3:25, please.
Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Yes. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Williams, happy to carry on?
Yep.
Good.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Williams.
Yes. I'm going to come to the question of the Bridgehead movements shortly,
Yes.
but before I do, will you just bear with me? I'm going to see if we can piece together a couple more sources of information from the White Wall, if we can.
Certainly.
Can I please have the White Wall up? Paul, thanks. Now, I want to look at the left-hand list, and about two-thirds of the way down, or three-quarters of the way down, you see what looks like 112. I'm so sorry, 112, 14.
Sorry, where am I looking? Oh, yeah.
112, 14, 8p.
Yes.
Do you recall you or Pete Wolfenden writing 8 persons for a fire survival guidance message for flat 112 on the 14th floor?
Can you expand it? It will just help my memory if I can see the one below it.
below it is 84.
I don't recall writing the 8 persons. So Pete Wolfenden may have done it.
Okay, right. Well, maybe we don't get very far. Do you have a recollection of any firefighters telling you that 8 people were left in a flat on the 14th floor?
No. I don't recall 8 people being left on the 14th floor, but I do recall logging somewhere on that wall the 10 people.
Right. Let's go to the middle column. Let's just chase that up.
That's that's a point of reference for me.
Right, okay. Let's see how we go with that then.
So-
Looking at the middle list, sorry, we've got the middle column where you can see
Forgive me, does it look like there's writing at the very bottom? Is that the whole picture?
I'm not sure if it is the whole picture, is the truth. That's the problem that we've got. Well, let's try.
I believe at the bottom. I have a strong I have a recollection of recording 10 people in a flat, and it throughout the evening it became apparent that there was movements within the tower. So residents were moving up and down the tower.
Right. Well, if we try the right-hand list, that may be the. If we go to the right-hand list, there is a 10 there next to 161 on the 19th floor. No, the right-hand list. Sorry. So this is the list. Ah, okay, right. Okay. Well, I'll try that in a minute. Right. If you can go just to look at that, that says 19161. Is that the 10 that you're referring to?
No, I don't believe it is. I believe that there was writing at the bottom of the wall, sir.
Right. Right. Okay. So then let's look at Met 000-15815, if we can, please, Paul. That's the picture of the entirety of the wall. That's what we started off with
Okay,
this
there
morning.
it is. 192, 23, 10, 3 kids.
Right. You say 192, 193, 193. I think that is.
It looks like 192 to me.
192. Sorry, 23,
10, 3 kids.
10, 3 kids.
And
right.
that surprised me because
Tell me what you remember of that.
just because have I listed 192 previously on the wall?
Are you sure that's 192 and not 193?
I remember being surprised by the number.
Right. Do you have a recollection of how the information about 10 came to you?
By the form of a fire survival guidance form.
Right. Then can I ask you to look at LFB 1922? I think it's page 20.
Yeah.
No. It's confused by the fact that there's another similar fire survival form. But this says 193, 22nd floor, 10 people inside, source unknown via CU. Do you remember seeing that? Or do you remember, does this trigger a recollection as to how you got the information about 10 persons inside?
It does, yes.
Right.
I
okay.
don't remember specifically this slip, this form, but yes, it does trigger
Okay.
a recollection.
And, okay, so you think you got it through that. Before I leave this topic about how the 10p came to you, do you remember speaking to anybody who came past you who was rescued or who'd come down saying that 10 people were left in flat 193?
No.
Right. Can I just go back then to the left-hand column and back to flat what looks like 112 and the 8 persons? You think that was Pete Wolfenden who wrote that up there, as you told us? But do you know from your own recollection or knowledge what you would have done with that information? Would you have, by which I mean, would you have asked somebody to deploy further crews to that floor and flat?
I believe that when this information was being collated, it would have been around the same time maybe just prior to the time in which we changed the way we were going to cross-check the details of the FSG.
Right.
It was around the same time as some confusion around the fire survival guidance going straight to the Bridgehead on the ground floor.
Okay.
So the information being collated, we had to gain some clarity around it. There seemed to be some confusion.
Yeah. Sticking with okay, I see. How would the Bridgehead know whether to or how to redeploy a crew to rescue 8 people?
So
How would the Bridgehead know that they had to deploy firefighters to rescue 8 people unless you had sent that information to them?
I would have continued to be sending the information.
Right, okay.
I never stopped sending the information all night. Every piece of information I got, I communicated
Right.
to the Bridgehead.
Okay. Now, just going back, and I'm sorry to bob back and forth, to go to the wall again, the big wall.
Yep.
I think we need the big picture of it this time, which was 15815, the De Silvo exhibit, the beige version. No, this is the whole picture. Looking at you've got 193 2210p in the middle column there. you've also got in the left-hand column 192. Just it's the penultimate entry. 192, 23, with what looks like 10, 3K.
Yeah.
Can you correlate the two? Or are they different entries?
They are different entries.
Right.
And they will have, I will have got those from the control information form. But so, just earlier when I was talking about, had I written this down somewhere else, it was about this time, maybe a bit before, that it became apparent that it might be possible that the residents were moving within the tower.
Okay. Can I then ask you about another flat on this wall?
Yeah.
Stick with this picture for the moment, and it shows on the left-hand side, we looked at it before, 1, 2, 3, and then you've got 5 down, 1, 2, 2,
Yeah.
15 query. Do you see
Yeah.
that? Do you know who wrote that down there?
Yeah, me. That's my hand.
That's your, what, 1, 2, 2, 15 is you?
Yeah.
Okay, and that's that. So you weren't quite sure before,
No, I wasn't.
but you're now sure.
Yeah.
What makes you sure now, whereas you weren't before? Is there anything?
Fresh eyes?
Fresh eyes. Okay. This time of the afternoon, that's
Exactly.
commendable. Do you remember a firefighter being present called Mandeep Singh? Firefighter Mandeep Singh. Does the name ring a bell?
He may have been my runner.
Right. Okay. He's got. He's put a statement in, and he says that he spoke to a member of the public who told him that there were 2 people and 2 dogs in flat 122, and that the man was refusing to leave. Do you have a recollection of being told?
I do have a recollection of a crew coming down, and they seemed a bit frustrated at the fact that someone had refused to leave.
Right. Let's just see if I can pursue this a bit
But I don't
further.
know. I would not be able to tell you who, what they look like. I just remember thinking, why would they refuse to leave?
Okay. Let's just see if we can tie the threads together with this one. Can I ask you, please, to be shown Met 000133089? Now, this is, I tell you what this is, it is an exhibit to firefighter Mandeep Singh's statement, and it's one of his, it's a 3x2 slip, and top left is what I'd like to draw your attention to. It says Glynn Williams, 15th floor, 122, 2 people, 2 dogs.
Right.
Now, do you remember seeing a slip like that?
I don't know.
Okay. Do you remember being passed in this kind of information by Mandeep Singh? 2 people, 2 dogs.
I don't know.
Do you remember, you say you remember firefighters coming down and being puzzled about why the occupant wouldn't leave?
I do recall hearing it, yeah.
You heard it firsthand or from someone else?
I couldn't tell you. My eyes were focused on the wall a lot of the time. And
Do the names Firefighter Nuttall and Firefighter Whitley mean anything to you?
I know a firefighter Nuttall. I don't know the other one.
You don't know whether they were the crew who were deployed?
Possibly, yeah, I don't know.
You don't know?
No.
Okay. They tallied out and came down at 2:42 and 2:44 which was at a time when the Bridgehead was on the ground floor. So does that help you identify when roughly you would have received the information about the occupant of flat 122?
I can't provide any further information about it other than I recall what you said
Right.
about an occupant refusing to leave. That's as far as I've got with the information to provide you.
Okay, just one or two more bits of information about that flat. If you go back to the big white picture of the wall, let's use that. It's only because it's clearer. We can do it on this because it's up, save time. In the middle list, you've got 122, 15th, smoke log. You see it for 2/3 of the way down the list. 122, 15th, and that says smoke log. Do you remember the source of the information about smoke log? We looked at this before this morning. I remember asking you, but let's just pursue this a bit further.
I can only say that if it's on there, it would have come via the control information form. I wasn't getting the source of information. Primarily was the control information forms from the command unit.
Right. Okay. We have a statement from a firefighter Nuttall himself, who says that he was unable to debrief to you directly, but told a watch manager near where you were standing that he gave the information about the 15th floor. Do you remember receiving information from somebody else standing near you about smoke logging in this flat?
I don't know.
Okay. Do you remember getting any information about the occupant's daughter? About the daughter being able to come down and give this information?
Sorry, the daughter came down to give the information about the smoke logging.
Have you a recollection about the daughter being the source of the
recollection
information?
of that, no.
Okay. When you wrote up smoke logging, do you remember whether you sent any further information to the Bridgehead about the need to deploy another crew to this flat? One, two, 15th smoke log.
When I received that information, I would have transferred that information, I would have communicated it, and I would have, as I had done throughout the evening.
Yeah.
So, if smoke log was on the control information form, I would have passed that on. If it was not, then,
Right.
well, not entirely sure why it would have been written up.
Okay, then pursuing that a bit further, can we just have a pan out of the white version? It's just clearer on the white version than it is on this one. Because we can see 122 smoke logged in the middle column. We can also see in the left-hand column 122 appearing 5 entries down, which you told us was you, and then again towards the bottom of the list, where it says no, it's so sorry, it's only, yes, that's right, but it says 15 1p. So you've got 122, which you wrote, 15 query, and then 122 15 1p.
Yeah.
So now we've got a total of 3 entries on your wall for 122. One in the middle, smoke log, and then 2 in the left-hand column after the Bridgehead has come down.
The one that you've highlighted there, that's not my writing.
Okay. The one that is your writing, then let's just go with that one.
With the question mark.
With the question mark.
Yeah.
Do you remember a redeployment to that flat after you got the information about that?
There's no... Can you zoom in on... Is that... Well, there's no BA attached to it, so that would suggest that there was not a redeployment to it.
Okay. Do you remember what caused you to write 122 15 query there?
I think I don't have a clear recollection as to why I put that question mark.
Right. Now, going back to your statement, could I ask you please to go back to page 9? We left off some time ago. At the bottom of page 9 of your statement, you say, as more FSG slips started coming in, the quality of the information started to deteriorate, and there was no time written on them to put them in time order. So at that stage that you're referring to there, how did you prioritise the calls or the information as you got them?
As I received them.
Right.
The role itself was becoming more challenging. I was trying my utmost to correlate information from survivors and breathing BA crews and firefighters and try and cross-check it with the information I had on the wall, and it was proving an incredibly difficult task.
Okay. Did you think about prioritising what you were asking, what you were sending to the Bridgehead by floor level? In other words, prioritising the higher floors?
At which point?
At the point at which you're describing the quality of the information starting to deteriorate and not getting and getting duplicates.
The task of prioritising the amount of slips I had into height level would have been an incredibly challenging task,
Right.
due to the sheer number of slips, due to the sheer number of control information forms I had.
Right.
So the prioritising is that I continued to transfer the information as I was receiving it, and at the same time I would continue to cross-check the new information, the fire survival guidance slips as I received them versus the information I'd already transferred to the Bridgehead. I think it's reasonable to say that I may have documented duplicates. Every bit of information I got, I was transferring and cross-checking.
Now, at the top of page 10 of your statement, you say there was no time written on the slips to put them into a time order. I wanted to prioritise the list using the time they were coming in, but as calls were coming in so quickly, I did not have the time to organise it. To maintain some order, I sort of resorted to prioritising the calls as I got them. So does that mean that at that stage you switched to a first come, first serve basis? In other words, first in, first out?
No, throughout the whole night I'd been prioritising the fire survival guidance as I received them.
Right. Well, that's why I asked you the question, because it suggests here that things changed after you after they stopped coming in with times on them, or are you saying that was always the case throughout the evening, throughout the night?
I think that I think in the early stages of the evening, the detail deteriorated, and I suspect that was due to the sheer volume that the command unit were probably embarking on.
So just so I'm clear, when you say I resorted to prioritising the calls as I got them, is it right that just barring the very beginning, that is how you prioritised?
I think that's language in which the statement was taken.
Yeah.
I would suggest that from the moment I started the fire survival guidance, I was unable to decipher a pattern in which I could do it. And as I said to you at the beginning, starting with high order, I don't know how high the building was.
No. All right. In the next paragraph, you say, on commencing my FSG list, not many people were coming out. It was between 2:15 a.m. to 2:40 a.m. that waves of survivors started to come out. At this point, I was unaware of the conditions in the stairwell. I did not know how smoke had filled the stairwell or of the congestion and disorientation that was going on. I did not know the fire had already breached in, so I assumed the people coming out were self-evacuating and the firefighters were assisting them. Now, just a number of things about that paragraph. First of all, did you expect to receive information about the conditions in the building?
Yes.
Who did you expect to receive information about that from?
in a normal circumstance, I expected to have some communication from the Bridgehead. However, between 2:15 and 2:40, I think it's approximate. I think the waves of survival, again, is language. There were people coming out. They were conscious and breathing and walking, and predominantly conscious breathing and walking. Sooted faces and signs of smoke inhalation. So, having not even stepped a foot up a stairwell, I don't know what that stairwell looks like. So I know as much about that stairwell as you do. So I imagine that these must be people that are self-evacuating, being assisted by the firefighters. Of course, we had breathing apparatus crews being committed. I knew that, because we'd never commit firefighters into an irrespirable atmosphere.
Right. Were you getting any feedback from the Bridgehead about the conditions in the building?
But the feedback, I wasn't getting the feedback from the Bridgehead. I was getting the feedback from people coming out.
Right. And in terms of people coming out, does that include firefighters?
Anyone.
Anyone, right. Were you able, at that stage, namely between 2:15 and 2:40, a 25-minute slot of time, to gain a clear picture of what the conditions were like in the building?
No.
Was there anybody you could have asked? Having heard information from people who were coming out, residents and firefighters,
Yeah.
was there anybody you could have asked the question, well, what's happening inside the building? What are the conditions like?
Well, the observations were different, depending on who was coming out, because I think the conditions differed throughout the building.
Yes.
Throughout that stage. So I could speak to a comment from an observation from one firefighter maybe it differed to the observation of another firefighter.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of information that didn't marry up. There was a lot of information that didn't tally up with what you'd expect to be happening inside that stairwell or the foyers.
Did you pursue any consistent feedback or tallying up from anybody?
I continue to ask the firefighters and instruct the firefighters not to remove the casualties until they had told me where they had come from. And in that process, what were the conditions?
Right.
What was happening? What was it like? Where have you brought these people from? There was a language difficulty with and I don't know whether it was a language difficulty or whether it was shock. But there was, in the early stages, I got a bit of information, but as time rapidly moved on, I got less and less information from the casualties. And the firefighters' appearance and condition on exiting the building was clearly deteriorating. So conditions were clearly worsening.
Were you satisfied with the quality and reliability of the information that you were getting from firefighters and casualties about the conditions in the building?
I was satisfied that the firefighters were giving me a verbal understanding of what they had experienced. I had a primary concern as to how we were going to correlate the casualties that had been brought out of the building to the fire survival guidance we were receiving, the location in which they'd been rescued. Because what did become apparent was that the people being rescued were being rescued, but not necessarily from the place in which a call took place. And that happened very quickly, incredibly quickly. So the accuracy of the deteriorating conditions, yes, because that's how we're trained. We're trained to give clear, concise, descriptive briefs of the conditions that we've experienced. So I was satisfied that the different locations we were asking our firefighters to go to were deteriorating in the form of hot smoke, gases, disorientation, congestion.
If, as you say, people were evacuating from flats which were different from the ones to which deployments had been made, how would you go about ensuring that an accurate record was kept of where they'd come from?
So initially the casualties were being taken out the front entrance. The front entrance soon became unusable.
Yeah.
So they started to exit out of a side entrance. And I'd already had several casualties come past me, and I hadn't been able to correlate where they'd come from. So that's when I was calling for a marker pen, because it would be highly unusual that casualties would be rescued from a burning building and not taken to a triage area to be treated. So my initial plan was to write on their forehead or their arm, the floor and flat. That way, at the triage area, it would be identified, thus being fed back to the command unit. I appreciate in the cold light of day, when I talk about this, it seems there's a lot of assumptions there, but it was in the accuracy, it was not accurate. It was not accurate where people were coming from. They didn't know. They didn't know what floor they were on. They'd started to walk down the stairs and had been picked up by BA crews. It was wholly inaccurate. And it was nigh on impossible to correlate that information.
Before Pete Wolfenden appeared in the lobby and started helping you, was anybody responsible? Did anybody undertake the task of communicating back to the command unit the results, good or bad, of any particular deployment to flats that you had recorded on the wall?
I don't believe they did. On the success of the rescue, my intention, because I'd already identified that the radio traffic was heavy, that I would send a priority to the command unit. So rather than have a continuous relay of information, which would, as I have mentioned, be at risk of being inaccurate, my idea was that I'd send a priority on the success of a rescue, but only if I could categorically, if I could be absolutely sure that that person came from that fire survival guidance call.
Yeah.
And I was unable to do that throughout the night.
What's a priority? How would you send a priority?
What a priority message on a handheld radio would indicate to the many firefighters talking on the handheld radios that actually I've got something very important to say.
Right.
So, so as I say, rather than the inaccurate relay of information going to and from the command unit throughout the night with fire survival guidance, it would be a specific message that I'm going to send.
Right. Do you remember sending any priority
I didn't,
messages back to the...
I did send one priority throughout the night on Channel 1, and that was because there had been a concern that Firefighter Hill had had a firefighter emergency.
Right.
So I sent a priority for Firefighter Hill to return to the engine control point.
Right. Can I just ask you about a document?
Yeah.
To see where this leads. LFB 1922, page 15, please.
Just thinking.
Mr. Chairman.
Sorry, I was just checking the witness was comfortable.
Fine, all right. Have to be kept in the loop.
I think there's a conspiracy going on here.
Page 15. Now this, I don't know if you can help us with this. This happens to be about flat 183, 23rd floor. But it's really the additional information I'm interested in. Somebody's written priorities,
Yeah.
and we think that's somebody who was Anthony Peckham, Watch Manager Peckham in Command Unit 7. And there's a list there.
Yeah.
Does this help? Does this ring a bell? You've got 6 or so, 5 or
Can you
or
open
6.
the whole? Can I have a look at the whole form? Thanks.
Yeah.
It looks familiar, but
I mean, might this be a priority, one of the priority messages or a priority message that you sent back to the command unit?
Where that says priorities, I'm not necessarily sure that is a priority as in the term priority message. I think that is a priority as in that they have documented that information and they're listing it as a priority.
Right. And that makes sense because in fact one of those flats is 192, and we've been looking at that earlier. Okay. In general terms, do you, leaving aside priorities, was there any other way in which you communicated the results of any particular deployments that you knew about back to the command unit?
No.
Right. And why was that?
I did not have an accurate outcome.
Okay. So, is there any other reason?
No, that's the only reason.
Right. In circumstances or in cases where you put a tick on your middle list, we've seen and you've described to us, did you communicate the information underlying each tick back to the command unit?
No, because it became apparent that it was inaccurate.
Okay. And when you wrote BA and then crossed the BA out, did you communicate the fact that no BA deployment had been made to the particular flats in your left-hand list, where we see that?
I believe that communication took place when there was a discussion around whether we would commit above a certain floor.
Right.
That was all part of that communication with people from them.
Do you remember an exchange with a firefighter? I think you know Ricky Nuttall, don't you? You said earlier you know firefighter Nuttall.
I do know 500.
Do you remember an exchange with him in which he tried to give you information and said, I've got lots of calls coming in, and you couldn't take information from him?
Sorry, can you say that again?
Well, we'll have to explore this with him. But he says that he tried to give you some information about a debriefing after about 3:10 in the morning, and he says in his statement that he told you that I'm not doing that, I'm doing this, and you were the one person doing the fire survival guidance down there in the building, and you didn't have time to call people up and tell them about a particular floor because you had a lot of FSGs to handle. That's the gist of his evidence on a conversation with you. My question to you is, do you remember...
It doesn't make very much sense to me.
No,
I don't... sorry, I'm not doing what... that doesn't make very much sense.
Well, that's what he... whether it's good or bad, that's what he said. Let me try it a different way. Do you recall an exchange with Ricky Nuttall in which he's trying to give you information he got from his deployment, the results of his deployment?
Yeah. As a BA wearer. He was deployed as a BA wearer, and he's coming back to give me information.
Yes.
I spoke to a lot of firefighters that night, and I know Ricky. I would need an indicator as to the context of the conversation we had.
Well, I've tried that.
I know. I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that.
Well, that's what he quotes you as having said.
It doesn't... I don't recall me saying that.
All right. Now, I want to ask you something mechanical. On page 9 of your statement, you refer to an automatic ventilation control panel. This is the second last paragraph on that page. And you said Well, you say, as I wrote the FSG information on the wall, I noticed there was an automatic ventilation control panel to the left of me. I was going through so many FSG slips, I was too occupied to look at the unit myself. I raised this with the station manager, who was not as busy as me. I informed him we needed to check the control panel and check if the ventilation had been opened so the conditions in the stairwell would be breathable. I do not know if this was checked, and I was soon preoccupied by the sheer volume of FSG calls coming in. Now, you say you noticed there was an automatic ventilation control to the left of me. Are you sure it was the left?
It's a typo. It was to the right.
It was to the right. Can you describe what you saw with the panel? Was it open or closed, do you remember?
I recall the door being slightly open. Not much.
Right. Do you remember whether there was a key in it?
I don't.
Do you remember whether there was anything on the display showing?
My recollection is, as I put it in my statement, I recall it being automatic ventilation, mechanical ventilation.
You say I raised this with the station manager. Do you remember who that was?
Can't remember.
Right.
I know I'd raised something with station manager Myatt,
Right.
but I can't remember which station manager I raised that
No, you
with.
refer to Nicholas Myatt later, but station manager Walton had some involvement, just so you know. It says he had some involvement with this panel on the night. Do you remember whether it was him?
It would be feasible that I would have raised it with Andy Wood.
Do you remember, though?
Well, there was a station manager that had led me in and out the building,
Yes.
and if that is Andy Walton, it's likely that I raised it with him.
Let's see if we can just say the station manager you're referring to, is that the same station manager that led you up and then led you down again at the very beginning?
Yes.
Right, okay. Were you concerned as to the conditions in the stairwell at this stage?
My experience with automatic ventilation is that it's there to improve conditions. So the fact that it's even there would mean that someone needs to look at that.
Right.
But I didn't know about the conditions in the stairwell.
Okay. What did the station manager respond to you in response to your instruction to him that you needed to check it? Suggestion, perhaps.
What floor is that on? Have I mentioned it in my statement?
Well, I don't think you do. You say, I don't know if it was checked.
Yeah, no, I
What was
don't.
his response? Do you know?
I don't know.
Okay.
So
Did that station manager give you any indication that he knew how the system operated?
he didn't know.
Okay. Did you see him make any attempt to inspect it or to operate it?
I didn't know.
Okay. Do you know whether that station manager made any attempt to talk to those managing the building to see if they could assist him?
I don't know.
Okay. Now, I'd like to move to the next topic, which is moving the bridgehead to the third floor. We know from previous evidence given to the inquiry that at about 2:17, the bridgehead moved up from the second floor to the third floor, where it was working for about an hour or so until it came down to the ground floor at after 3:08 or so. Were you aware that the bridgehead had moved up from the second to the third floor at any stage?
At the time, I was not. No.
Really? Okay. So, Watch Manager Watson didn't tell you that the bridgehead had gone up?
No.
Right.
Not that I recall.
Okay. Did you notice that your system was affected at any point in the night? Were you able to continue to communicate with Watch Manager Watson throughout the process of your
I was,
FSG
yes.
collation? You were. Do you remember having a involvement with creation of a new entrance into the lobby of the tower?
I did, yes.
If you go to your witness statement at page 11, it's the second and third paragraphs on that page. You I think, explain there. You say, the station manager decided to stop the main entrance being used as it was now unpassable. And then you go on to explain what happened next. And you say, and you explain that you delegated a firefighter to create an exit point into the tower, or entrance and exit point into the tower. Was that exit made through the doorway to the right of where you were doing your FSG?
The communal, yeah. So, as you're looking at the wall, there's a door just to the right-hand side.
Yes.
Yes, it was.
And let's just be clear, if we can have INQ 247, it's one of a number of pictures with this door in it. But
yes.
There's a door.
Exactly.
Right. And just help us visualise. I mean, what else is happening in that picture doesn't matter. This is just another example of the door. If you go through the door, where does it lead?
I only went through that door once, and
Right.
that was when I was exiting the premise.
Oh, I see.
From recollection, this is a corridor that leads through to a room and a reasonably sized room, maybe 5 metres by 10 metres.
Right.
And in the right-hand corner, there was an exit was created.
Can you, let's just see if we can just pin this down. Please be shown MET 000012593. Page 8. Sorry, yes, quite right. Page 8. So this is or should be, a plan of the ground floor. If we can just enlarge the southern part of that, you can see the atrium in the middle, and on the left there's a door which leads into a hall with a WC, hints of which I think you've just seen in the photograph. And then that then leads into a room to the west, if we can just have the edge of it, which says office. Do you know where the entrance was cut?
From my recollection, it would be in the community where it says office.
Yeah.
And it would be up there. Sorry, this corner here.
Right, okay.
Far
So
left-hand corner.
So the north corner.
There, yes.
There. All right. Okay. And are you able to help us with the time at which that creation of an entrance took place?
It would have been quite early on because it felt quite early on.
Right. Was that before or after the Bridgehead moved to the ground floor, taking that as your...
It was soon after.
Right.
I gave my helmet to the little girl, to the young lady exiting the premise with the BA set on. It was soon after that.
That would be... Well, we can get that, because that's at 2... If we just look at IN... That's about 220.
It was soon after that.
And we know it's 220 because INQ 247 is the photograph where that appears. So about 220. So just
it would be
after
between,
you started.
I think, yeah, relatively soon. I don't know if it would be as soon as 220, but certainly within a 30-minute span of that, it felt like.
Okay. Now, given that you say in your statement to page 10, second paragraph, that it was between 2:15 and 2:40 that waves of survivors started to come out.
Yeah.
Does that mean that you actually had a bird's eye view of everybody who went out of the tower?
I had an overview of people. There was a slight delay in the creation of the access. Some survivors had been brought down to the foyer. We were unable to use the main entrance due to the debris falling. and an access hadn't been created, which resulted in several of the survivors
Yes.
remaining in the foyer while the decision was made to create an access.
Okay. And how long was that period, do you think?
I really struggle to
Okay.
tell you. I'm sorry, the timings are very difficult to recall.
As people were exiting through the door to your right,
Yep.
were you able to stop all of them? Or
No,
some
I
of
was
them?
trying. I was speaking to. So what developed was the BA. What seemed to be happening was that the BA crews would bring them down to as far as the bridgehead, and then firefighters would take the casualties around the mezzanine level and start assisting them down the stairs.
Yes.
And then you would have maybe another firefighter take the casualty. So it was a bit like a chain.
A daisy chain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So by which point, by the time they get to the location in which I'm doing the fire survival guidance, I'm asking the firefighters assisting, and of course they don't know because they're just part of this chain. And I'm asking the residents, but either through shock, through language difficulty, through unconsciousness, I wasn't able to ascertain clear information, which then made it incredibly challenging to relay any information to the command unit. And I didn't think that it was appropriate to relay inaccurate information.
No, I see. Just picking that up and moving it on a little bit. Can you go to page 12 of your statement? And I just want to look at paragraph 3 on that page with you. You say the casualties being brought down had signs of smoke inhalation. It's a longish paragraph, and I'm not going to spend time reading it all out to you, but I do have a number of questions about it. First of all, you say that the casualties were being brought down had signs of smoke inhalation and were in a worse condition than those carried out earlier. Can you just describe for us what you mean by in a worse condition?
So initially, as I referred to earlier on, to when I was describing the initial entrance into the block, that there were casualties conscious and breathing coming out with signs of, with sooted faces, but they were conscious and breathing. They were walking, it looked like they were being assisted. But as the incident rapidly progressed, the condition of the casualties deteriorated.
Right.
And now some were conscious and breathing, some were unconscious, some were being carried. Their general, my observation is that their general health condition had begun to deteriorate.
Now you go on to say in the next line that as this was going on, I continued to try and correlate where the casualties were coming from, ticking off those I could identify on my FSG list. Now, reluctant as I am to go back to the wall, as it were, at this hour, let me try and do that. Can I ask you then to be shown the white wall again, 5774? Can you just show us, when you say ticking off, is there anywhere on the wall where you would identify this ticking off that you refer to in your statement?
So initially the information I was getting back was that the crews had made it to these floors, but fairly soon it became apparent that the information may have been inaccurate.
Right. So the tick, for example, for 205 went up, but then you soon realised that was wrong. Is that right?
It soon became apparent that the crews were unsure if they'd gone to the 20th or the 23rd, or whether they'd been to the 19th or the 21st. So my early hopes of being able to correlate rescues diminished fairly quickly.
Okay, well, it may be just the drafting of the statement then, because it seems from this that you were able to tick off some of those you could identify. And I just wanted you to help me identify or give me some examples of those ticks. of where you could identify.
So I recall a BA crew coming down, and they were absolutely sure, and I can't remember which flat it was, but the BA crew themselves had gone into the flat, and they were absolutely sure that they'd been in the flat, and there was no one there.
Right.
And
Can you give me
a BA wearer, is that the whole wall?
Well, it isn't. The white one isn't the whole wall, but it's the more visible part of most of it. We can go back to...
I can't remember the number, because then the second BA wearer, it was conflicting information, because the second wearer said that believed that they were on a different floor.
Right.
So initially, where I was getting a lot of information quite quickly about the success rate of reaching the flattened floor,
Yeah.
as I say, very quickly it became apparent that this information was inaccurate.
Are there any flats and floors where you put a tick where you didn't get information afterwards that the crews, which you didn't find reliable?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah. Are there any instances on that list, or either list in fact, where you originally put a tick where you remained confident that the tick was correct?
No.
Right. So for all of them, you received, is this right? You received later information that you had no reliable information?
Very quickly, it became apparent that the information I'd received on the success rate was inaccurate. And I was unable to report back to the command unit any information on specific details of rescues.
Mr. Millett, excuse my interrupting you yet again, but how are we getting on this afternoon?
We are getting on all right. There are still some things I need to cover with the witness. I fear I won't finish the witness this afternoon.
Right, well, could we find a convenient point to break fairly soon then?
Yes,
It's
I
been
think
quite a long day for me.
it is a long day for all for the witness. Let's finish at 4:30, if that's not inconvenient to you, Mr. Chairman.
How do you feel about another 7 or 8 minutes? Can you cope?
I can cope.
I thought you could, yes. Right, we'll finish at 4:30 sharp unless you find a convenient point before then.
Very good, certainly.
Thank you.
You say that in the same paragraph as I've shown you before that you say by the time they reached the ground floor it was unknown where they'd come from and which crew had rescued them. You've covered that. Then you say residents also appeared to be moving around within the tower and seeking refuge. How did you know that? How did you know residents were moving around in the town seeking refuge?
Because it was the only explanation for the differing numbers.
Right. Was that an inference or an assumption you made, or did you get hard information from somewhere?
I didn't get hard information. It was, as I said to the detective at the time, and I think this is a clarification on language. I think when I wrote, and it may be my fault for not reading my statement clearly, but I was saying that the differing numbers could only have meant that it was that people were moving.
Right.
So for example, to have the number of people, I was surprised by the number 10 people in a flat, because it didn't seem like the habitable space would accommodate 10 people.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Did you communicate to the Bridgehead or to the command unit the fact that you knew or thought that people were moving around in the building?
When passing the information, I expressed that they must be moving between flats. So I said in terms so that it could be passed to the Bridgehead.
Who did you say that to?
think I probably... It was, though the Bridgehead was on the ground floor, I believe I went to the door and said they must be moving between flats.
Right.
When I went, with reference to the fire survival guidance being taken to the Bridgehead, bypassing me, and I said, look, we've got people, and I've got one with 10 people on it.
Did you pass that information to the Bridgehead or to the command unit before?
Not to the command unit. I didn't pass any information to the command
Okay.
unit.
Did you pass the information to the Bridgehead then at any stage before it moved down to the ground floor? About people moving around in the
No,
town?
because it only became apparent to me
Okay,
once they were on the ground floor.
right. Did you update your wall with further information which would reflect movement?
This was more of an observation around what I was identifying in the numbers coming in. It wasn't hard information. It was an observation that would help identify how things were differing. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that crews will go into places and there weren't people there, and
Right.
so just through a process of a long night communicating amongst firefighters, amongst people coming out, the disorientation, it was an observation, and it was more of a open, they must be moving around.
Yeah.
It wasn't a eye-to-eye contact and clearly handing over of this information the way I was with Paul Watson. It was just an open dialogue. They must be moving. We've got 10 people in a flat.
Can I just ask you to just try a document on you? It's LFB 1968, page 17. Now this is a 2x3 fireman's pad slip with a female and a child on it, and then there's a move, or rather, it says 115 to 113. Does this trigger a recollection about a flat move
No,
that you had?
no.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I actually I have come now to a natural break point. I've probably got another hour of evidence left for this witness, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
And of course I can't account for what suggestions might gently be put my way overnight, as to which that is not an invitation, of course.
No.
So
then
we'll have
this
to
is
make
obviously
arrangements. But
time should stop.
yes, it is a time we should stop. Can I just ask gently through the chairman whether or not it's convenient for the witness to return tomorrow morning?
Well, then, Mr. Williams, we do have some more questions for you. Can you come back tomorrow?
Yeah. I can continue now.
Well,
Yes,
I think
you might be able to.
everyone gets quite tired during these long days, and perhaps you're still fresher than many of the rest of us.
Yes, he and I can continue. Right. May I make an application? I'm conscious that there are other firefighters to come tomorrow. And
Is it the usual application for the usual reason?
Yes.
Yes.
But
well,
slightly different reason, actually, but it doesn't matter. It's an unreasoned application. 9:30, may I?
yeah. That exchange was code for please can we sit at 9:30 tomorrow, because we obviously like to try and keep up with things a bit. How would that inconvenience you to start at 9:30?
That's perfectly okay.
Right, well then I'm going to ask you to come back, if you would, at 9:30 tomorrow, and we'll finish taking your evidence there.
Okay.
In the meantime, please don't talk about
I
these
shan't.
matters to anyone,
I won't.
and we'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow morning.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to go to the usher. Thank you. Right, nothing else we need to deal with now, I take it?
No, Mr. Chairman, I should just say I'm grateful to the sitting late this evening and also tomorrow morning early. We ought to be able to make up the time tomorrow, because I'm assured by Mr. Kinnear that he won't be terribly long with the witnesses that follow.
Well, we shall see.
Well, he will see. Yes.
Right.
Thank you.
very much. Well, we'll rise now and resume at 9:30 tomorrow morning, please. Thank you.